We have an outstanding speaker today. He spent at least a year traveling the state promoting the Georgia lottery. It passed, and since the lottery passed and has come into being, he has spent an inordinate amount of his time continuing to promote the lottery and also doing a good job of defending the lottery against its critics. The lottery, like any new business or any state agency, is not without its problems. And at this stage of the game, if we're going to have a Georgia lottery and it has to be brand new, I can't think of anyone better than Dave Garrett to be the person in charge of it. Dave's a rare individual. He's a native Atlantan. There are not many native Atlantans left today. He's the CEO of Sunbelt Industrial Contractors. When I read Dave's resume, my first thought was, Lord, this is like a who's who in America. And down at the tail end of it is he is actually in who's who in America. He has a listing of civic and professional activities that anyone would envy. Dave was an attorney when I first knew him, and he was with Powell, Goldstein, Frazier, and Murphy law firm, and he made a bid for a statewide office. He was one of those also rare individuals who had a solid, substantial career. He had a good family that he was devoted to, and yet he thought he could do a better job than the person holding office. He thought that he could make Georgia a better place, so he gave up that career. He gave up that secure lifestyle to offer for public office. And in part, that's what the Georgia public policy is about, is trying to preserve the American dream for our children. And Dave has always done his part to try to preserve the American dream for his children and for our children. Dave is here to speak to us today, not as a native Atlantan and not as chairman of Sunbelt Industrial Contractors, and not also as a graduate of Georgia Tech. He did go to law school at the University of Georgia, though. He's here to speak to us today as chairman of the Lottery Corporation. And he's going to speak for a few minutes, and then he's going to stand for questions. So it's my pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce to you a man of vision, a man of integrity and character, someone who is in charge of the Georgia Lottery Corporation, Mr. Dave Garrett.
Tom, I appreciate very much the kind words. I can recall very well when I did run for statewide office, one of the people that I talked to quite regularly when I could squeeze myself into his very, very busy schedule was Tom Perdue, to talk about what it takes to be successful in statewide politics. He knew. I didn't get it right. But I am delighted to be with you all this morning. And let me say a couple of things that to give a little context for why I went and jumped off the bridge and decided to spend as much time as I have over the last year to devote myself to trying to make the Georgia Lottery a success. I decided some time back, as many of us have, and I know many of you in this room have, that one of the key things that we're going to have to do better in this state if we're going to achieve our potential is to do a better job of public education. Now, there's never been anyone in my knowledge, in my recollection, that ever ran for office in the state that didn't say the same thing. We've all acknowledged the fact that this needs to be done. But once you dig into it, that's much easier said than done. To reform something that is that well established is an awesome undertaking, and it's going to take some major steps if we're going to do that better. I got involved in the formation of the Georgia Partnership for Excellence in Education, which is a three-legged stool, the way we define it, with elected officials, business, and education all at the table. And as we began to look at what needed to be done for the state, a number of things came out. And without getting into it right now, but some of those things are things that the lottery will pay for. So when Governor Miller asked me, literally May of a year ago, to become sort of the volunteer head of the campaign to get the lottery passed, it was in that context that I agreed to do that. I did it knowing full well that it was going to take quite a bit of time, but I have the dubious distinction of having taken a campaign. At the time I took it on, all the polls said that we were going to win 2-1, and through my expert campaign management, we were able to squeeze that right on down to about a 3.5% win. So obviously, I haven't still gotten it right on politics yet, but I don't underestimate or fail to appreciate what happened during that campaign, and the fact that there were a number of people in the state who, for very personal and sound moral reasons, chose to oppose it. I don't fault that. I respect anyone who stands on moral principle. But I truly believe then and do now that the Georgia Lottery presents us with a unique opportunity. And so I want to talk a little bit about what we've done, kind of how we got here, and maybe tell you a few things about how we're organized that may give you a little context as you watch us and judge us. Last December, the governor named a board to run the lottery. The lottery in Georgia is a little bit different than in a number of states in that we were created by statute as a public corporation. We're not a department of state government, as is the case, say, in Florida, but we have been set up and have been instructed by law to act entrepreneurially, and the key words are in the long-term interest of the state of Georgia. And so the board that was appointed is, for the most part, private sector. There are people like myself who come out of the private sector to be a part of it. There's 7 members of the board. They're from all over the state. And we all serve without pay. We don't even get a per diem. I say that not out of pride, probably out of stupidity, but I want you to understand that as I stand here before you as chairman of the board, none of the members of the board, we can't even play. We are totally unpaid, but we all have a share of belief in what we're doing. I'm proud of the board. I think they're an outstanding group, and we've had some interesting times over the last several months. The lottery business, as you look around the country, it's always contentious. There's never been a startup yet that didn't go through some of the birthing pains that we did. Contracting, major procurements are always contentious. Ours were no different. We took steps that I'll be glad to answer any questions in a few minutes when I finish, but we took steps that at times were probably not the easiest or the smoothest, but ones that we felt were critically important if we were going to have a good startup and we were going to get off to a start and be able to be true to our mission. Let me just remind you, those of you that may not be totally aware, exactly what the money's going to do, and then I'm going to talk to you about how we've done. The statute specifically states that the money is to supplement educational funding, not supplant it. By that, it cannot fall into the trap that occurred in Florida, excuse me, where it went into a general fund for education, and essentially it went in with one hand, it came out the other end, and was used for other things. And the people of Florida have, and the governor of Florida has been quite critical of the fact that the promise of the lottery was not realized. No one's ever criticized for not selling tickets. They've sold a lot of tickets, but they have not realized what they had hoped they would realize by virtue of the fact that their money goes into a general fund and it sort of gets lost in there. The Georgia statute has very specific requirements as to how this money is to be spent. Voluntary pre-kindergarten for all 4-year-olds, early intervention with at-risk children. Any educational expert says this is key. It's something that if you miss the opportunity to reach those children at that critical age, that's an opportunity lost and never again recovered. On the other end of the educational system, it provides for scholarships. Anyone who graduates from a Georgia high school with a B average and whose family has a combined income of $66,000 or less will get a scholarship to attend, full tuition scholarship to attend a state university or to go to a vocational school. If they maintain their B average during that first year, they get a loan for year 2. And if they maintain the B average through year 2, then the loan is forgiven. There's nothing else like this anywhere in the country. And I truly do believe that one of the things that accounts for the fact that so many of our children drop out is the fact that they don't see that hope at the other end. They don't see the opportunity to go on and do something with a high school education, and therefore they choose not to see their way through it. The third thing it'll do is it'll go for some classroom enhancements, technology improvements, satellite dishes for every school in the state, computer laboratories, for some capital improvements. So it's a very specific list of things that the money is going to go for. The first year budget was based on $139 million net to the state, which equates to a little over $400 million of total sales. I mentioned those numbers because I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how we've done. Okay, we started on June 29th. First day, we didn't know what we were going to do, and a vote as close as we had, you don't know whether or not people will come or not. Day one, though, we sold over $13 million worth of tickets, and in so doing set a record for the country. No state had ever sold that many tickets per capita in the history of the lottery. Sales for the first week were over $52 million. We broke the first week record, too. That equates to $7.80 for every man, woman, and child in the state of Georgia. As you will see in a second, that broke the record in Florida, which was $7.70. The top 10 retailers are all on border locations. There's been a lot of talk about the effect that Georgia had on the success of the Florida lottery. What's now occurring is out of the 10 top retailers, 5 of them are out of our Columbus district office, which means that we're getting a lot of play out of Alabama. 3 of them are out of the Dalton office, which means that, as we suspected, we're going to get a lot of play, and are getting a lot of play out of Tennessee. And the other 2 are out of our Gainesville office, but those are over on the Carolina line. So we are getting a lot of play out of our sister states. As of last Sunday, July 18th, which is 20 days into the play, actual sales to players equals $90.5 million. And that's broken out fairly well between our first 2 games with a $13 million of the third game. At this point, all the first 2 games have been sold out to our retailers. That's 100 million tickets, and they've all been distributed. The third game has proven to be quite popular, and we've actually had to order an additional $20 million worth of tickets on that one. Our biggest problem, quite frankly, has been to keep our retailers in tickets. The demand for them has been beyond anything we could have expected. Fourth game started this week, goes on sale today, as a matter of fact, and this game is somewhat similar to the Georgia Millionaire game. First $1 million drawing will be occurring on July 31st, and that'll be a televised event. Let me talk about our retailers. When we first started on June 28, 29, we had 5,100 retailers. That number as of today is 5,575. We've had a few people to drop out. We've had a lot more to enter the system. But we're in the process now of getting the equipment in their hands and moving ahead. Looking forward, next month, August the 10th, we will start with the online game. It's a game where people pick their own numbers, and then the traditional lotto game that's been so popular in Florida will begin in September. So I guess in a sense we had some gratification that when the thing started, the people did come and they did play, and they continue to play. The demand continues to be strong, and in terms of meeting what the state put in their budget for this year, in the first 20 days, we essentially have already sold 25% of the total. So we're not particularly concerned about whether or not we're going to meet that demand. We certainly expect to, and should exceed it. And so there should be some surplus of lottery funds, which the governor and the General Assembly will, I'm sure, deal with. To put some context, as I know many of you in this room are out of the business community, and I guess to sort of look back on the last few months, and then I'm going to stop and take questions. What we have essentially done is we have formed a Fortune 500 company in 6 months from scratch. We had no employees. We had no office supplies, no office equipment, no nothing. I was telling Tom that the early days of the thing, it literally had to be operated out of my office, which put a tremendous strain on our people. But in the construction business, people don't quite expect, they got a whole different kind of phone call during those early days. And so we had to kind of stand in during that period. We've done it in an atmosphere that is somewhat unique for a traditional business enterprise, in that every time we have a board meeting, every time the board gets together, it's done in the full light with Chuck Walston and the newspapers and other press there, but even more interestingly, with every vendor that might ever want to do business with us sitting in the room. So as we begin to talk about procurement strategies and how do we want to set this thing up, everyone that could conceivably want to do business with us is sitting in the room, and I would just simply ask you as a business people just to think about what that means. While we are a public corporation, we operate solely for the benefit of the state. We quite frankly were trying to learn. There wasn't a single one of us in this thing that had any experience whatsoever in lotteries. We had to make a lot of very key policy decisions, and we were trying to figure out how to do it without either looking stupid or being slow, because we knew what our assignment was. I think in the main we've come through it pretty well. If we can be judged by the results, then we have. When Governor Miller swore us in, he made it very clear what our assignment was. He said it was our assignment to sell the tickets. It was his assignment, along with the General Assembly, to spend the money. And he looked at us and he said, "Good luck and goodbye." And I can tell you, I know there's some members of the General Assembly in this room, neither the governor nor any member of the General Assembly, from any point of view whatsoever, have attempted in any way, shape, or form to try to influence our selection of vendors, or who we've hired, and in terms of our senior staff. It has truly been remarkable that everyone has been willing to allow us to do this thing in a very professional way. I'm proud of our staff. I'm proud of the people that we've been able to attract to this state. We have 3 former state lottery directors on our staff. Obviously Rebecca Paul, our president, who formerly ran Florida and before that Illinois, who is a Republican. I always point that out in case anyone wants to wonder whether or not politics took any role in her hiring. But she's formerly been very, very active in the Republican Party, and when she lost her job in Florida, it was because of a change down there from Republican administration to Democratic. But we have 2 others, so we've got depth of management, and I think anytime you've got a business, you need to have that. As our sales have gone up, the expectation is that, in my mind, that we're going to be able to exceed that which the statute calls for in terms of first-year turnover to the state. Statute calls for us to turn over 30% of gross sales to the state for Lottery for Education Fund. After year 2, it goes up to 35%. It also says that prizes need to be at least 40%, and it says that the retailer commissions need to be 5%. So we have built a budget, a very preliminary budget that called for the 30%. We raised the prize level to 50%, and the retailer commissions are at 5%. But as our sales go up and as we exceed that which we think we were going to do, the real bottom line benefit ought to be to the amount we're able to even give the state during first year. So in terms of performance, the thing has gone very well. We've had an interesting few months, not without controversy, but we have all tried to be mindful of our assignment and to understand that we were there on behalf of the people of Georgia, and even recognizing that there were then, and I know still are, people in the state who don't like it, who aren't ever going to like it, and I understand that. Our assignment was to run it well. Our assignment is to do it right. Our assignment is to bring the money to the state, and we're going to do that. And we're going to do it well. So without going any further, let me open the thing up for questions and see what's on your mind. Yes?
Dave, the portion that relates to the scholarship, sounds like it was roughly about a third of that portion that will go to.
I got to go back and look at it. I think don't hold me to this, but I think the scholarship portion's in the $60 million category.
I read 40 million.
That maybe 40 million is right, but again, I don't have the numbers right in front of me.
My key question though is, that doesn't sound like that would give everybody in the state a scholarship that would like to have one.
Well,
what's the selection process for them?
It's really quite straightforward. If a person graduates from high school with a B average and their parents have combined income of 66 or less, 66,000 or less, they have it. There's nothing else required. And
do you think there'll be more people applying than
I hope there are. I hope there are. And if there are, I'm also confident the money will be there to do it. Obviously you make some projections. This was not done by us. The Office of Planning and Budget did some predictions on it, and nothing would please us more than if that number doubles, because there's that many more people who have the B average and who are prepared to do what they need to do. I'm also very pleased that it's not just college, but it includes the vocational schools, because 2 years will get you a vocational degree. And we know, if those of us that work in industry and understand what it takes to recruit, train workers, people who've gone through our vocational schools, are absolutely as much needed in this state right now as our college degree people. So I hope we undershoot that, but the money will be there to take care of it. Yes, sir.
There'll be a lot of B average students that can't even qualify to get into college. They need remedial education. How are you going to separate the ones that shouldn't be in college? They don't have, even though they had a B average, they got by very easily.
Well, you're raising a very valid point. I think that, and I'll put on my education hat for a second and say we got to be sure we set the B high bar at the right location. That a B is a B is a B, and that it does mean something to qualify at a B average. I think in the main, if they come out with a B average, they probably are not as likely to fall into that remedial area that you're talking about. There are clearly high school graduates, may or may not be at the B average, who are coming out and are entering our colleges who are not begun to be ready for it. And I'm hopeful, not only just for the lottery, but just in general for the good of this state, that we're going to find some things that we can do in the high schools to upgrade that opportunity and make that a meaningful thing, and make a degree from a high school in the state of Georgia mean something.
One other thing that always concerned me was the fact that poor people get addicted to gambling, and they lose and they try to get even, and they spend the money that they had for rent and the food for the children, and they wind up on welfare.
Mm.
So what you gain on money for education, you'll have to pay out in welfare.
Well, all I can say is this, that this, the lottery is in existence now in, many states around the country, and that particular concern has been raised in every one of them. And lotteries that are a lot more mature than ours have run surveys to try to understand who their players are. Because I don't think any of us, certainly I would move into something without any facts and would have the same concern that you've raised. But the facts, as you look at them around the country where they have done good, sound research on who the players are, reflect that people play throughout the entire spectrum. The poor are no more likely to play than the wealthy. They all play to some degree. And the point of, we come back to the fact that it's a voluntary activity. It's something that people choose to do on their own. And I will tell you that in terms of how we are advertising it, how we are trying to pitch it, I think anyone that has seen our advertising would have to say that it's a fairly straightforward thing. It doesn't attempt to pitch to any group or small number of groups. It just simply tends to inform. And we're going to do our own survey as time goes by after we get up and running good to see who our players are. And whatever we turn up will certainly be available to everybody. Yes, sir.
Dave, what size full-time organization do you have in the state, and are you using consultants to get started?
We had a startup consultant, which is the traditional way things get done because you have to move so fast. The Ernst & Young firm has a lottery specialty, and they were selected after a competition to be the startup consultant. So yes, they were very involved. We also used a firm out of Ohio called Battelle Memorial Institute, who specialize in procurement. And so we brought them in to help us. Not only we needed their expertise, we also needed their bodies, because you don't want to as much as you need to build a staff, you don't want to make mistakes, or you want to minimize them. And so yeah, we use consultants. Obviously, their activities will drop out as we build up our own staff. Obviously, also the major vendors have staff.
It's great you got such good experienced people, 3 full-time directors.
Yeah, people with past, having run the thing, gives us a lot of depth, and I really think that bodes well for the future. Yes, sir.
Dave, you say 50% of the proceeds are being returned as prizes.
Yes.
The law states that only 40% have to be returned.
It says minimum of 40. Mm-hmm.
Did the lottery board set 50 to get it going, and then it's going to drop it back to 40?
Not necessarily. We were told, one of the things the board did is we brought in lottery directors from all over the country before we ever hired our first employee, to try to get some sense of what the track we were getting ready to run on looked like. And we were told, without exception, that 40% is too low, that people will not play, that you will not be able to maintain the games if you don't give back more in prizes. And so as we looked at that situation, we were led to believe that 50%, some states pay more, but the 50% was a happy medium. Now that's not to say as we go forward that every single game will always be at 50. I suspect there may be some that'll be slightly below, some that may be slightly above, but 50% is the basis for our budget. Yes, sir.
Could you expand a little bit on your expenses? I presume from what you say, 90% has already been accounted for. Does that mean about 10% that runs the lottery operation? Is that?
That's the initial budget was something along these lines. 50% were the prizes, 30% to the state. Approximately 10% went to paying vendors and paying retailers combined, and then 10% to run the lottery. That was our best shot, kind of at getting started. It was passed before we ever sold first ticket, and so that will be refined. In my own view, I suspect that the overhead portion of the thing will come down a little bit below 10. Don't know how much yet. We're going to continue to be watchful of it, but that it seems to be very much in line with what we're seeing around the country. Yes, sir.
I have a question on this, the B average and how it was picked out, and whether there was a study done on how many people in high schools are maintaining a B average, and mainly because of the vocational aspect, where you have people that are good with their hands, but not necessarily intellectually. Mm-hmm. The ability is not there to get that B average. What will happen to those people?
I didn't have anything, and I wasn't a part of that debate. I think the goal was to try to create some level of excellence that was required, and not make it just something that anybody could get. To create some achievement that had to be secured before you could qualify. I suspect that this thing will continue to be looked at and refined, and perhaps we'll add, I won't say us, because that's, as I said, the governor told us what our assignment is. But they'll be looking in the General Assembly too to see what else may be able to be done in the way of student assistance. But I think the B average was simply there for a reason, and that is to create something that not everyone could do, and to create an incentive to excel. And I think that goes to the heart of what you were saying, and that is if people are going to go to the level that they need to go to achieve a certain outcome, and if that outcome could be achieved at C, then that's what they're going to do. And we need to excel. Yes, sir.
I think we're all real pleased that the lottery's in the hands of an honorable man, people. We appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you.
I have some real concerns downstream. It's taken off well. The history of lotteries in every state is that they level off, and then you get into extreme advertising and other forms of gambling. Video lottery, of course, is something that feeds on the pathology of addiction, gambling addiction. Lotteries are the most quickly addictive of all forms of gambling. Video lotteries entice teenagers. Are you, Dave, prepared to state categorically that we will not have video lotteries in Georgia?
I can tell you that that we have not even discussed video lotteries in Georgia. We have had our hands full dealing with what we're already doing. And I'm not unmindful. I'm going to answer your question, but I'm going to answer it the best way I know how. We've not even seen that bridge yet, let alone begun to cross it. And while I wouldn't necessarily want to commit future boards, I can tell you that I have no interest in video lotteries, and I can only speak as one person. I believe that properly run, the lottery can be a reliable producer of income for the educational system of Georgia, and as long as the budgeting is done right, and that we always maintain some cushion in our projections, that we will, and as long as we deal only with supplemental and not supplant, I think that the lottery can be a very good thing for Georgia. I can tell you just personally that video lottery technology is not something that I'm prepared to support, but I will tell you we're a long way, in my opinion, from even approaching that issue. We've got a lot of things we're going to do before that. Yes, sir.
Well, I think Mike Bowers may have raised some questions about your procurement policies, and I believe one of the board members gave what the newspaper described as a pretty arrogant response to the Attorney General. And my question is, what in the future really keeps the lottery from becoming a law unto itself, the way the statutes are currently written?
Well, I don't recall. I'm going to speak to every one of the points you raised. Mike Bowers is our lawyer. His people have been involved with us in every step of the way. There's not been a meeting, negotiations that occurred. Representatives of his office have been with us, and so we are in no way, shape, or form getting juxtaposed with Mike Bowers. The other lawyers that have been hired by him, and so the counsel of the lottery is the State Attorney General's office. Has been, will continue to be. I want to make that point. In terms of how we are governed, in the final analysis, the General Assembly is going to determine that. We've been given a set of laws, and those set of laws tell us to act entrepreneurially. They say to us, recognize that you're a public corporation, recognize that you're operating not for profit but for the benefit of the state. But within those parameters, make the right decisions. And that's what we're doing. And I don't consider us a law unto ourselves by any stretch of the imagination. I can tell you as a recovering lawyer, that I have read that statute, every line of it, and I take it to heart. It's our Bible, and we're going to operate within it. But I'll tell you this, there's never been a procurement in any state that didn't have conflict. We knew it going in, it's happened, but I will tell you that we've acted very, very professionally, and we've been upheld in every respect. Yes.
The education is really the Trojan horse, I guess we're talking about, that rolled the lottery into Georgia. I think we ought to admit that. That's what it was sold on. It's not always sold like that in other states, but it was in Georgia, and it has been in other states. Mm-hmm. The other states that I know obviously, you've already stated that Florida has kind of displeased their education officials, from not only the school superintendent to their university chancellor, stated that perhaps the lottery is the worst thing that ever happened to Florida educationally. But it's not limited to just Florida. California Superintendent Bill Hornick has gone on record as stating that it was sold as far as educationally there, and yet in fact it has not helped education at all. Ohio's lottery director stated after it was sold to people in Ohio on that basis, he said that as far as being a financial savior or whatever for education, he said that has always been a myth, and that will always be a myth. Since you are playing off the fact that one of our strong points is that we have 3 former lottery directors, helping us out, if the history of the lottery helping in education, and history is bound to repeat itself, as we all know, has been that record, could you at least share with us some state who has been sold the lottery, based on education, and can turn around and say, Wow, it was everything they said it would be. It has done what it said it would be. In fact, and I'd like to comment on this statement, in fact, is not the total receipts of the lottery historically for, I think what we've got 30 plus states, with the lottery today. We're talking, we're talking about these big bucks that you're talking right now, but realistically, the total concept of the lottery is probably of our state's budget less than 5%.
It's no savior, and no one would say it is. Let me make a couple of points in response to your question. Lottery directors and lotteries very rarely have anything to do with determining how the money's to be spent. All right, and so one of the things that I think gives us some comfort is the fact that Georgia had the benefit of seeing California and seeing Florida. And I think by anybody's estimate, our statute is the most ironclad that has been written. Can laws be changed? Of course they can be changed. But you put a scholarship program in place and start tinkering with it and getting rid of it and see what happens in the state. I don't think, as a failed politician, I can tell you that ain't going to work. Same thing on pre-kindergarten. If people begin to see the improvement of it, they can create some constituencies, people who will support them, who will fight for them. And I believe that Georgia has had the opportunity to see Florida. California, the pattern was the same. In every case, it was sold as education, but it went into the general fund, and once it got into that big general fund, you never again could figure out where's the lottery money, versus where's the tax money. And so it all got in that cauldron, and no one could spot where what was, and therefore they're concerned about being the worst thing. It was because it raised all those expectations. We're going to solve all these things, and then it got in there, and then the money got siphoned off. Now, in Georgia, the law simply doesn't allow that to happen.
Right. Now, it covers the money up front, like you're saying, and I understand and appreciate the more ironclad law there. But then the legislatures can turn right around and whatever's already budgeted for education, they can start cutting that down because we're getting all the big money up front.
Let me ask you the question. What do you take out if the money is coming in for scholarships? I mean, you don't bring money in for scholarships and say, all right, let's cut the book allowance. Or we got money coming in for pre-kindergarten and say, all right, let's cut the construction allowance, or let's cut the teacher pay. I mean, it's not the same thing. And there's no natural trade-off. There's no natural substitution. I think that's the key. Not only is it going to be supplemental to what the state pays, but it goes to programs that are not being paid for by the state. Now, again, I'm not a member of the General Assembly. I had nothing to do with how the thing was framed, but I truly believe that as much as can be done to ensure that it goes to something new. The money that we're talking about, you're right, even in the education budget, it would only be a blip. But the ability to completely and 100% fund the programs we're talking about are significant. And that's where I find the goodness in the thing. This is not going to be a situation where people aren't going to know where the lottery money went. They're going to see people going to college because of it. They're going to see pre-kindergartens created because of it. They're going to be able to look directly, and they're going to know what they got for it. And it maybe is important in response to your question, what they're not getting, what's not being funded by it. Yes, sir.
I want to go back to the question earlier about the state being involved in lotteries. I expect we'll have a referendum on a lottery in Tennessee next year, and one of the questions already is the role of the state promoting a certain kind of activity. Obviously, the state taxes other similar types of activities such as alcoholic beverages. And I believe your budget calls for a certain amount of money set aside to study the effects of gambling on Georgia.
A portion of the unclaimed prizes goes into a gambling fund, or if you will.
You probably responded to this during the campaign, but what is your response on questions about the state being involved in promoting an activity which is potentially harmful?
Well, my response to that has been and continues to be that gambling has been going on in this state forever. The people are concerned about certain things going on in Metro, but the bug, the 3-digit bug game that plays off the securities page in the paper has been going on forever. Lotteries go back to the Middle Ages. In other words, anybody that plays golf with me, I know because they get my money. Gambling is somewhat fundamental. And the fact of the matter is that, as Thomas Jefferson said, if this is a tax, it's a voluntary tax. It has to be the fairest of all, because people only taxes the willing. And if we can do something good with it, and people are going to do it anyway in some form, I can find plenty of support for that. Obviously, I hope Tennessee doesn't pass, just like Florida wishes we hadn't. But the fact of the matter is that, and going back to the point about lotteries, there's never been a state that ever did away with one. They obviously continue to find something good in them. They continue to find something, even in those states where maybe the expectations weren't reached. They need them, and they keep them. Yes?
One final question. We have to end the program. The programs that we're spending the lottery dollars on are ongoing programs, the pre-K programs, the scholarship programs. Over the years, the cost of those programs will increase, while historically we've seen lottery revenues decrease in other states over the years. What happens when those lines cross and the lottery revenues are no longer providing the necessary funds for the programs that we've committed to?
Well, that'll obviously be an issue that'll have to be continually looked at year after year after year. As you look out, lotteries do have a history in some cases of down years and up years. It's not one of these deals where they start here and over time they do this. Arizona went through a down period for whatever reason, and they've come back and they pumped it back up, and now it's back up to where it was before. To some extent, it's a matter of just managing the business properly. But I suspect that what's going to need to be looked at is you have your core programs, the things that you want to do every year. And as Governor Miller and the legislature have already done, they've created a bit of a cushion fund already to begin to try to deal with these fluctuations. And what we may end up doing, and again, I can't speak to it because this is nothing I have a vote on, but that the extra programs that you begin to put in come out of that surplus, and you do those, and maybe those are more of a one-time type category. I don't know. But the bottom line is that you need to continue to project it year to year to year and maintain those programs that the legislature has called for. I think we can do that. I frankly think that even with the natural growth, and let's do hope that we have a lot more B students who really are B students and who qualify for this program. But I truly believe that we're going to see that Georgia's going to maintain a level sufficient to do that for the foreseeable future. Thank you all very much.